Have any of you taken a test and after the test you go, ooh? Any of you ever done that or something similar? Okay. It's happened to me. Um, you know what the first thing I do when that happens is? I start looking around to see anybody else making that same face. Because I want to talk to them, because I want to see if they get what I'm feeling. Because if they get what I'm feeling, then I'm not alone and it's not so bad. However, if I walk out of a test and I feel like, man, that was a hard test, I think I probably failed that one. And everyone else is like, psh, that was easy. Then I feel really small and insignificant and terrible. But if I can relate to somebody, if somebody else has had that same reaction, that same feeling, been in that same spot as I am, and gets what I'm feeling, it doesn't change the mark of the test. It doesn't change the situation at all. It just gives me a little bit of hope. Some of you know this story. When I was traveling to Kentucky, I was taking a intensive 1-week course down there. The flights were kind of a mess going down, and God got me through it. And then on my flights back, everything was nice, everything was great, everything went really, really well until the last flight, and I got stuck on the plane for 2 hours in New York, and then they canceled the flight. And so here I am stranded in New York in JFK Airport, and I'm just freaking out. This is my first time traveling anywhere by myself. There's kind of bad weather coming. We're not sure if we're going to be able to get out of here for 2 or 3 days. Well, I don't know what's going on, and I'm just freaking out because I'm all alone. And you know what the first thing that I did? I started looking around for anyone else making that same face. I just needed to know that somebody else was in the same situation. Somebody else got what I was feeling. It didn't change anything. Like, I didn't get another flight because there were other people there trying to get flights. It didn't make the situation any cleaner. It didn't fix anything. But when I found one person or 2 people or 3 people that got what I was going through, that got it, they could relate to it, they understood it, somehow it made it easier. It gave me hope. It wasn't so huge anymore. And there's very little that is more terrifying than being in a situation where you feel totally alone, like nobody gets what you're feeling. When you feel like nobody else gets it. Nobody else can give you advice. No one else can help you. No one else can watch your back. No one else has any idea what you're going through. And it's just so overwhelming. There's a passage in Hebrews chapter 4. It says, "For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weakness, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. Let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need." Now what the writer of Hebrews is saying right there, when it comes right down to it, is Jesus gets it. In every situation, in every circumstance in your life, Jesus gets it. Because he's human, just like you. That means maybe you're here tonight and you've made some friends, or you had some friends. They're probably old friends now. But you made some friends and you you finally thought that you could be vulnerable and open with them, and you decided that you were going to share with them and share your ideas and talk to them about your family and your work, and you were going to open up and really try to start depending on them. And then you find out a few days or a few weeks or a few months later that they've actually been using all your ideas to get promoted in work where you should have been promoted, or they start telling lies about you behind your back, or maybe they decide to bring up that one little nugget that you thought you could really trust them with, and they decide to bring that up in public just to make you look a little bit lower and them a little bit better. And in that moment, you just feel so utterly betrayed. But when we look at the life of Jesus, we see him come onto the scene when he was about 30, and all these people just start flocking to him, and they flock to him, and they flock to him, and they come to him, and they try to learn from him, and they will follow him around, and they want to watch him and see what he does. And Jesus takes a certain group, and he teaches them, and then he whittles that down, and he takes a smaller group, and he teaches them, and then he finally gets this group of 12 guys that he takes everywhere as he goes. These are the 12 guys that he's going to pour his heart and soul into every step of the way. They're going to see every miracle that he does and every healing that he does, and they're going to hear everything he teaches, and they're going to watch everything he says. And they are going to be his closest trusted friends in the entire world. And we see that at supper one night, he's eating with the 12 guys, and one of them gets up from supper, leaves him, and goes to these authorities and says, "I will hand Jesus over to you if you give me a little bit of money." And leads them right to Jesus so that they can arrest him and kill him. Jesus gets betrayal. Maybe you're in the situation, or you've been in the situation where you start walking through the hallways of work or through school, or you're walking down the street somewheres, and people are kind of shuffling away from you. People look at you with those eyes that kind of pierce right through you. You try to talk to somebody, and they don't even bother giving you the time of day. Or maybe you're sitting in class or at work, or you're having conversation with certain groups of people, and you know that the people over there, they're just talking about everything that you've done. Or when you finally get into the same social circle that they are, they just want to bring up all the mistakes you've made and how you've failed. And in that moment, for good reason, you feel very much judged. When we look at the story of Jesus, there was this group of people called the Pharisees who were the experts, the best of the best. And they started watching Jesus, and they didn't just watch Jesus to see if he was good or bad. They watched Jesus every second of every day to find something wrong. There was this one time when he was walking in a field, and him and his disciples started picking the grains from the wheat and eating them. And it was on Saturday, and in Jewish custom on Saturday, you're not supposed to do any work. And so these guys looked at that and said, "Oh man, you're working. You're supposed to be a good teacher. Why are you working?" And there was this other time when Jesus was surrounded by people, and there was a man who was hurt. He was diseased, and Jesus healed him on this Saturday. And they were like, "You can't do that. You can't do that." And another time they were watching Jesus, and he didn't wash his hands before he ate, and they were like, "What is wrong with you?" And they got so angry at Jesus for this that it's after these situations that they decide that they actually want to kill him. Jesus gets being judged. Maybe you're alone. Maybe you're in the situation or circumstance where you are literally alone. There is no one around you keeping you company. Maybe you're surrounded by tons of people, but you can't trust any of them. None of them are really your friends. None of these people you really want to open up to or share with. And even though there's lots of people, you really just feel alone. And you start to wonder, is it because I'm a terrible person? Is it because they hate me? Is it because there's something wrong with me? Why? Why is it that I am not worth sticking with through the long haul? Why am I always alone? When we look at the story of Jesus, we see he had his 12 disciples, his 12 close buddies. And the night that he was betrayed, he knew what was going on, and so he took the guys and they went to a deserted area. And he said, guys, I really need you to pray for me tonight. I'm going to go pray, and if you guys can pray for me, that'd be really good. And he goes off and he prays and he comes back and the guys are sleeping. And then the guy that betrayed him comes with these guards and they arrest Jesus. And the moment that they lay their hands on Jesus and arrest him, all his friends scatter. In the moment when Jesus needed them most, they deserted him. And one of his closest friends kind of follows behind it, but then when he's finally confronted and someone says, you know Jesus, don't you? You know that guy. 3 times he says, nope, I don't know him. That guy's not my friend. And so Jesus is made a captive, humiliated, tortured, and killed as his friends scatter. Jesus gets being alone. Maybe you're in the situation where you're trying to be a good parent, you're trying to train up your kids right, or you're trying to do your job right, but it doesn't matter what you do, it seems like your kids always turn out to be brats or disrespectful or unorganized or irresponsible, or you're at work and you're trying to make some changes in work and everybody seems to just want to cause more problems with it. Maybe you're just trying to make changes in your own life and you want to just get on the straight and narrow, you want to be more obedient to God, or you want to get rid of some habits, or you want to eat better, or maybe you just want to change up your finances or whatever it is, and no one seems to be helping you, and there seems to be more problems coming in, and you just get so frustrated with it all. When we look at the story of Jesus, we see that when he's going around doing his ministry, he's got his 12 disciples, and he goes to one situation, and he's there, and he's got a couple loaves of bread and a couple of fish, and there's thousands of people around him. And miraculously, he's able to feed over 5,000 people. Incredible. 2 days later, they're in the same situation. There's 4,000, not 5,000, but only 4,000 people there. Jesus has more food. And his disciples go, what are we going to do? Jesus is pouring his heart and soul into these guys, and they just don't see it. And he looks at them, and he's so frustrated and annoyed. He's like, how long do I have to be with you guys before you get it? What happened to this faith? You saw me do it 2 days ago. What's going on? Jesus gets frustration. We don't often think about it, but you get some other situations in life too. Maybe you're at the point in your life where you're dealing with matters of the heart and hormones. Cough. You just really want to be in a relationship where you can express those deep desires with one person. And sometimes you want it so desperately that you're willing to even be used and abused and turned into an object, or use or abuse others and turn them into an object just to satisfy that craving. And you walk out the door and you're trying to deal with all these desires and all these situations, and you look out and you see the magazines and you see the TV commercials and you see people around you, and you're just bombarded by sex everywhere. If you look closely at the story of Jesus, you'll see that he spent a whole lot of time around women who made their living through sex. There's one story where there's a prostitute, a very well-known prostitute of the town, comes to Jesus and cries at his feet and washes his feet with her tears in her hair. There's another story where a woman comes and takes this perfume that would have taken her more than a year to save up for and gives it to Jesus. There's another story where there's someone caught in an affair, a woman caught in an affair, and Jesus steps in and stops the crowd from killing her. There's another story where Jesus goes to this woman who's had 5 husbands and is living with another guy and starts talking to her. Jesus was surrounded by women. I think it's naive to think that Jesus never, ever dealt with the fact that he could have had anyone that he wanted. Jesus gets the struggle with sex. Every one of us in this building tonight, every one of us in this town has been tempted by something. There are days when we're tired and hungry and we just want to give up. Maybe somebody says something and we just want to snap at them. Maybe it's a circumstance where we're watching a show and we know we should turn it off, but we're just so tired that we would just want to give into it. Maybe it's something with our business or our finances, and we know what is right, but we feel like we can just cut the corner. We want to eat healthier, but it's so hard. And when you look at the story of Jesus, if you're familiar with the book of Matthew, you know there's this very unique story where Jesus takes 40 days and he goes out to the wilderness and he doesn't take any food. And so he's tired and he's hungry and he's probably thirsty, which is bad conditions for any of us to try to hold any kind of willpower. And Satan himself, Satan meaning the deceiver or the liar, himself comes to Jesus and starts taunting him and tempting him, says, "Are you really who you say you are? Do you really have to go through all this? You know, you could just turn that rock into bread. You know, you could just prove to everybody right now that you are who you are. You know what? You could just prove to yourself that you really are God just by using him." Jesus gets temptation. Maybe none of those things relate to you tonight. Maybe you're sitting here and you just have this real burden on your heart. You see the problems of the world or the problems of your family, and you just are so overwhelmed with how huge these issues are. You see the problems with human trafficking or social justice. You see the stratification of the rich and the poor. You look at the environment and you see the environmental problems. You look at the price of gas and the problems in political environments, and you see the world order, and you look at the problems with family and gender roles, and you see all these problems and all these matters, and you look at the school system and you wonder how you can reach these kids and fix all these problems, and you feel like you're the only one that feels this way. You have this deep-seated passion to do something and to change something, And the greatest fear you have is that you're the only one that's going to be fighting for it. Well, when you read the story of Jesus, you also see that he knew he was going to be betrayed. He knew he was going to die. And he knew that was part of his mission. That was part of his passion. And one day he's talking to his disciples and he tells them, you know what, guys, we're going to go to Jerusalem and I'm going to be betrayed and I'm going to be killed. And that's part of the mission that's going to happen. And he's pouring out his heart about how hard it's going to be for him to follow through and do this, but it's going to happen. And one of his closest friends, Peter, he comes up to him and says, Jesus, I'm never going to let you do that. And Jesus' heart sinks because he realizes they don't get his passion. Jesus gets what it is to have a passion for something when nobody else does. Jesus gets it. Because Jesus is human. A man. Just like us. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses. We have one who in every respect, has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. Let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in times of need. Doesn't matter what you're going through here tonight, folks. What situation you're in or struggle you're facing. What I want you to know is that Jesus gets it. And I know that doesn't fix it. I know that doesn't make the problem go away. I know that doesn't just fix hardly anything. But it should give you hope to not give up. Because you're not alone. Now, if the worship team can come up, I'm going to hand out some markers here. What I'd like you to do is, Rob, can you do this? I want everyone to take a marker and a few of the cards that are in there. What I want you to do with the marker is I want you to take the marker and I want you to go to the mirror or the window that you look out the most or look into the most, especially when you're frustrated. I don't know if anybody else does this, but sometimes when I'm real frustrated or feeling alone or like no one else gets it, I just kind of stare into the mirror for a while. What I want you to do is I want you to take that marker and I want you to write on that mirror, Jesus gets it. Jesus gets it. So that every day you look in that mirror this week, whatever is happening, whatever's going on, you look in that mirror and you are reminded that it doesn't matter because you're not alone. Because Jesus came to this earth as a man, as a human just like us, was tempted with everything that we're tempted with, and he gets it. He gets it.